The vast expanse of the universe often carries humanity's best wishes, but the deep void that swallows everything also conceals danger. Even a tiny meteorite, accelerated by gravity, can smash fiercely into Earth, shattering the car window of Lyra's family. Yet this strange sight went unnoticed by everyone. In her parents' eyes, the loose baby tooth of their youngest son was clearly more important. Feeling out of place with her family, Lyra watched all this with irritation. She put on her headphones, pulled down her cap brim, and wished she could return to school as soon as possible, since a competition awaited her. Accompanying Lyra's race was also the mention of a meteor shower on the car radio. Although the news assured that this meteor shower posed no threat, her stepfather still complained a bit. But before he could worry about the celestial phenomenon, Lyra's cold attitude doused him with another bucket of icy water. Today, their youngest son's birthday. But it wasn't a happy day for Lyra. Misha, who had always admired her, waited eagerly by the track. She not only had an independent personality, but also stood out in her attire. An impatient competitor even mocked her, calling her a cold-fearing Arab. However, she wouldn't be affected by her opponent's trash talk. When the starting gun fired, the athletic girls surged forward in unison. Misha cheered wildly from the sidelines, fearing that his beloved Lyra couldn't hear him. Perhaps feeling Misha's support, despite her cunning opponent's tricks, she managed to pull ahead. Nearby, surveillance silently bore witness to the thrilling moment. The finish line was just ahead, and Misha was so excited that he ran directly to the end zone, raising fireworks high with his willpower to celebrate her imminent victory. But somehow, upon seeing the flames, she was terrified and fell to the ground. Even after sitting in the chaotic birthday party scene, she remained shaken. Her mother seemed very happy, not just because of younger son's birthday, but also because her second child with her lover was about to be born. Amidst the cheerful birthday song, no one cared about Lyra, who had just finished her race. Is this really my home? Lyra's question lingered unanswered in her heart. At the birthday party, sparklers were lit, and unable to bear the sight of fire, she fled, leaving behind a bewildered mother who had fully embraced her new family. She only wanted her eccentric daughter to act normal at her brother's birthday celebration. However, in Lyra's eyes, her half-brother was not her sibling. Lyra's resentment flared again, even dragging the ever-watchful surveillance into the mix. The person monitoring the surveillance footage was none other than her biological father, John, who was far away in space. John was a dedicated astronaut. Aside from using government signal resources to check in on his daughter, he excelled in all other aspects of his work. The space station, Mira, where he worked, was highly intelligent, equipped with a system voice that could converse directly with the astronauts. However, although Mira was powerful enough to help John locate his daughter amidst the vast sea of humanity, her Russian pronunciation, as an AI, was still a bit clumsy. John often teased his colleague for not knowing how to use interrogative sentences. But despite her outward ease, she had already been fighting for 6 years in the space industry. Station commander had long known that John was secretly using the space station signals, but since everyone knew how much John adored his daughter, he hadn't reported him to commander. Still, he hoped John would show some restraint. Misusing public resources was still a crime. Even if John didn't care about the butterflies in the space station, he should think about his comrades. The current work aboard the space station indeed required attention. On the monitoring screens, the trajectory of the meteor shower proved more unpredictable than expected. He urgently exchanged information with the space station. In fact, according to existing observation technology, it was indeed difficult to accurately simulate the fragmentation process of the target asteroid. John's colleague bluntly pointed out that if there were any errors in the calculations, some fragments might fall into the Pacific Ocean region, including the coastal area where Lyra's family lived. The probability of such an event occurring was small, but they still believed it necessary to warn people on the ground. The meteor shower appeared on the horizon as forecasted, its beautiful sight gradually soothing Lyra's heart. Misha, pretending to pass by casually, approached the girl again. With his mechanical arm, he cleverly maneuvered toward Lyra. Wise Misha wouldn't waste any moments spent with her. He directly took her to the rooftop of the Arabwa Tower, the highest vantage point overlooking the entire city. As beautiful meteors streaked across the night sky, Misha turned to ask the usually melancholic Lyra, "Have you ever thought about the world ending?" He looked at Lyra, gazing at the distant stars, shaking her head in denial. After all, the morning broadcast had assured everyone that everything was fine. Lyra returned home late, But her barely calmed mood was once again disturbed by her younger brother, who had entered her room without permission. Fortunately, he hadn't meant any harm. He simply wanted to give her a piece of birthday cake since she had left early that day. He was not only a considerate child, but also a little astronomy enthusiast. However, he firmly believed in science and didn't think making wishes on shooting stars held any significance. All he wanted was to find a place far from light pollution to observe the meteors carefully. Upon hearing this, she suddenly remembered the Arabois Tower where she had been earlier that night. The building was still under construction and freely accessible. Her body bore numerous scars from burns. Lyra wasn't afraid of heat because she was Arab. She simply had a painful memory she didn't want to revisit. During an elevator accident in her childhood, she had been trapped inside the cabin and suffered severe burns. Though her father had arrived in time, he couldn't open the elevator door separating them. Helpless, John could only sing her a familiar song to comfort her. This video was the only thing that soothed his soul amidst the high-pressure environment of his work. Even Mira noticed that whenever John watched this video, his tense pulse would slow down. But moments of relaxation were rare. The astronauts still had to continuously adjust the trajectory of the meteor shower. Just as everyone thought the asteroid had departed Earth as predicted, they suddenly detected another cluster of tiny meteorites. In this scenario, the widespread meteor shower would not only cover the Pacific coast, but also destroy the space station. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Anton immediately overrode the indecisive commander and ordered the crew to initiate their escape plan. He also gave John permission to contact his daughter using the station's equipment. John had just managed to contact Lyra when the meteorites came hurtling toward them. The Mira space station was instantly shattered, and Lyra was knocked off her feet by the shockwave from the distant impact. Still dazed, she scrambled to dodge falling debris. She had to flee the coastline immediately, but panicked crowds were scattering everywhere, making it hard even to stay upright. The already unstable elevator was torn away by the shockwave in seconds. Outside, meteorites continued to rain down one after another. Apartments erupted in flames, and hallways shook violently. She jumped from a second-floor window onto the roof of a car and finally escaped the apartment building. But before she could catch her breath, a nearby father and daughter urgently sought her help. Their child was trapped in a damaged car, and despite their efforts, they couldn't free the child. Misha's mechanical arm smashed through the glass. She would never abandon the person she loved. Misha grabbed her and quickly fled the neighborhood with her. Misha, who was usually carefree and bold, remained calm and composed at this critical moment. He repeatedly reminded Lyra, "We must stay together and not get separated." But just as they were dodging a massive shockwave, chunks of broken bricks fell from above. She was suddenly struck by a speeding car and knocked unconscious. The elderly couple who had hit her panicked, but didn't abandon her. The grandmother even placed her beloved Lucky Cat figurine on the girl for protection. By now, the city's traffic had descended into chaos. Driving through the night, the elderly couple maneuvered their car left and right, the constant jolting eventually waking her. But before they could feel any relief, they were stuck in a traffic jam caused by accidents. The meteor shower continued to rain down over the city. Screaming, she rushed into a nearby mall, while the overwhelmed elderly couple and others outside were buried under the collapsing rubble. At this moment, John, the surviving astronaut, awoke from the darkness, as if his daughter's voice had called out to him. Although severely damaged, Mira, the AI system aboard the space station, was still partially operational and maintained communication with John using the remaining power. Around the same time, Alex issued an evacuation order, granting John just over 3 hours to use the space station signal. He instructed Mira to locate the last known position of Lyra's phone signal, even though doing so would drain more of the station's power. The father's repeated calls finally reached her ears. For now, he could only communicate with her through a toy bear, but the weak signal made it difficult. Unable to clear the debris around Lyra, rescue teams eventually managed to save her. Once she regained consciousness, she realized the once familiar city had been reduced to ruins. The government had set up a shelter at a local university, where her mother and stepfather were safe. John relayed his daughter's signal to the shelter, and she learned from her family that his brother was still missing. However, she knew that her brother wasn't at school. He was trapped in the Arabois Tower, the place where he had planned to watch the meteor shower. John analyzed the precarious state of the unfinished building, which was on the verge of collapse at any moment. Despite warnings from her father and rescue workers, she bravely headed toward the Arabois Tower. Her courage seemed to be inherited from her father. Meanwhile, in space, John ignored Mira's warnings and insisted on performing an extravehicular operation. The space station's remaining power was dwindling, and the compartment housing the battery had already detached from his workstation. Determined to restore power to the station to maintain contact with his daughter, John pressed on. Dodging falling debris, she finally reached the Arabwa Tower. Like her father navigating the dangers of space, every step forward required caution against sudden threats. The floating debris in the air resembled frozen butterflies in space. After some searching, both father and daughter located their respective goals. But the shaking staircases and wreckage of the space station caused them repeated setbacks. Finally, John managed to restore power and capture his daughter's signal. By then, she had found her brother, but didn't know where to go next. Guided by her father, followed the holes created by meteors back to the street. As they escaped, the Arabwa Tower collapsed behind them, sending clouds of dust swirling around the siblings. The path back to the shelter had turned into a labyrinth, and the space station's signal had yet to fully recover. John could only guide his daughter to safety using the lights and horns of nearby vehicles. It was Jaeger, the young astronomy enthusiast, who first noticed the signals. Whether it was car headlights, traffic lights, or neon signs, every available signal was coordinated by the father to lead his children to safety. The siblings finally escaped the ruins, but their relief was short-lived. John soon learned from Mira that a cruise ship in the bay had been struck by a meteor and had already caught fire. The ship's automatic fire suppression system was damaged, and if the ship were to explode, the force would be enough to destroy the nearby refugee camp. The people who had just settled into safety now faced imminent disaster once again. Without time to think, Lyra's only priority was to get her brother to safety. Under the guidance of the rescue team, she found a helicopter, but it was already full and unable to take on more refugees. Misha stepped out of the helicopter, giving up her seat for him. The two, who had promised never to separate, embraced tightly once again. John was determined not to let his daughter face the flames again. He reported the impending explosion of the cruise ship to Alexei, but the rescue teams were still uncertain when they would arrive. No one could guarantee that the ship wouldn't explode beforehand. After much deliberation, John gave up his best chance to return to Earth. Now, the only ones who could help his daughter were Misha and himself, still stationed in space. She had inherited not only her father's bravery, but also his spirit of sacrifice. Upon learning about the impending explosion, she didn't entertain any thoughts of escape. She informed her father over the phone that she intended to save everyone in the city from the explosion. Hearing that his daughter was risking her life, John grew frantic, repeatedly urging her not to play the hero. With that, she threw her phone into the sea. Misha, who deeply loved her, showed no hesitation either. Having lost contact with his daughter, John reached out to his ex-wife. The only person who could save her, and all of them, was John the astronaut. The fire on the cruise ship raged fiercely as they approached in a small boat. The nightmare before them didn't look like a cargo ship anymore. It resembled a massive powder keg. John's voice came through the phone once again. Under his instructions, the two began turning on the water valves of the fire suppression system one by one. But by this point, the space station's last backup battery was nearly depleted. While searching for the valves, Misha was knocked unconscious by a door blown open by the spreading flames. In an instant, she found herself in grave danger. She couldn't contact her father, couldn't save Misha, and couldn't face the flickering flames before her. At this critical moment, AI Mira reminded John, "If you cut off my power, you can still maintain contact." John never expected that the cold artificial intelligence could understand his emotions. He told Mira, the space station he had worked with for 6 years, that her name came from a binary star system, a massive planet protecting a smaller asteroid nearby. John reconnected with his terrified daughter, who couldn't hear his words over the chaos. Suddenly, John noticed Misha's mechanical arm. Using the signal, he remotely controlled the robotic hand. Feeling his daughter's presence once again, he told her, "I may not return to Earth safely." Sobbing uncontrollably, she tightly grasped her father's hand. Time was running out. John helped his daughter locate a nearby firefighter suit. Meanwhile, the space station was gradually being pulled into Earth's gravity. Mira was about to return to its long-lost home planet at the second cosmic velocity. Flames blazed fiercely outside the porthole and surrounded her. It was as if they were holding each other's hands tightly amidst the inferno. The familiar song was sung once again. Finally, she opened the last water valve, saving everyone. The rescue team arrived just in time, finding the two. John and Mira became meteors, streaking across the horizon. Shining upon his saved daughter, her happy life was the greatest wish of her aging father. Lyra reunited with her family. His brother, wrapped in bandages, told his sister, "Actually, on the day we watched the meteor shower, I also made a wish that you would return safely." She finally realized that the people around her loved her so much. Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded in her ear. She smiled faintly. "So it's you again. Today's story has come to an end. If, after watching this movie, you've ever made a wish upon a shooting star, imagined the arrival of the apocalypse, or have anything else to share, feel free to tell your story in the comments below.